Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Wombynhood Illuminated Podcast. I am your host, Ruth McGilligan, and I am joined today by the magical Katie Daly. Come down from the mountain, Katie Daly. Couldn't not do it. Like,
Hello.
Hello.
How you doing?
It's so good to have you here.
Oh, what a day we've had.
I know. Katie and I have been on a wee magical mystery day. It is now, this is so funny, like this just sums up every person that comes into this house, right? We started our day at 12 o'clock. It is now 9:30 and Katie was here to film this podcast. And 9.5 hours later, it took for us to actually sit down and record this podcast. But we're here now.
We are. Better late than never.
Here now.
Here now, hey.
And the first thing I want to say is a massive thank you, because I have to, for those of you watching, Jason will do a wee close up, but Katie does calligraphy and she has done this beautiful sign. It says the Wombynhood Illuminated Podcast, established 2025. And I love it. It's so pretty. Thank you.
You're very welcome.
It's lovely to receive a wee handmade gift.
No, the best kind.
They are. And speaking to this being a talent, my goodness, you have many talents.
Stop.
And you've spent a lot of time learning and deepening into all the work that you do. And I know this conversation is a really needed conversation, because up until this point, like our conversations here on the podcast, we've been gently moving into deeper and deeper work. But I feel like today's conversation is something that has touched every life of every person that is going to be watching and listening. And your story it's a hard one, but it's inspirational, and it really shows the power of how stepping into your gifts and your talents and how that can carry you through the hardest of times.
Summed up very beautifully there.
Yeah.
Aye, there's everyone's got a wee story, haven't they? And everyone's on their journey, and we've obviously had many chats today, jumping about all over the place. But there was that one sort of theme we kept coming back to, and we both sort of felt like it would be important to speak into that on this episode. So yeah, in terms of the journey I've been on and how it informs what I now do, it's just a constant evolution. But yeah.
Can we just, first of all, what is it that you do? Because you're like myself, that is the most freaking difficult question when you do lots of different things. But if you could give us a wee rundown even of the things that you've been really stepping into.
Sure. So I was a primary school teacher by trade for many years, specialising in early years education. And just through different life experiences, my journey took me down different paths. My mum was always quite holistic in her approach when we were wee. Back flower remedies and homeopathy and all that. And so I think that, it was sort of in there anyway. Passed down. My mum is definitely a medicine woman, and I have, as you mentioned, like I wear different hats. I'm a functional breathing coach, so I'm a qualified Buteyko breathing instructor.
What's it called, sorry?
Buteyko.
And what is Buteyko breathwork, functional breathwork?
There is an Irishman called Patrick McKeown, so he went and studied under Dr. Konstantin Buteyko, who was a doctor in Ukraine, and he basically had ill health himself, and through changing his breathing habits from dysfunctional to a more functional way of breathing, he just experienced this amazing change in his overall health and well-being. So he then developed this breathing method, which is known as the Buteyko breathing method, and the fundamentals of it is, breathing through the nose. So our nose was built to breathe through. Our nose has over 30 functions, and with our sort of evolution and our love for convenience, and there's so many culminating factors that affect how we breathe, like nervous system and physical mechanics, and it's pretty complex. But in a nutshell, just nobody's breathing in a functional way. Like so many people, like if you snore or have sleep apnea, or if you're constantly sighing through the day, like those are all wee indications that you're not breathing as functionally or effectively as you could. So basically, as a Buteyko breathing instructor, I work with people over a period of 4 weeks and help retrain their breathing patterns so that they are then on a day-to-day basis breathing more functionally, which it affects every system in the body.
Of course, yeah.
So it's so interesting. But with my background in working with children, I work with children from age 4 up. So most of my one-to-one clients have been working with children, which has been amazing.
Sweet, but that's not the only string to your bow, though.
No. So that's one
just
thing.
one.
So when I left mainstream teaching, I started forest school teaching.
And what is forest school teaching?
Forest school teaching is basically an educational approach where you're outside all the time with children, and so basically I teach children how to take risks in a safe environment. We're lighting fires, we're using tools, they're climbing trees, and it's just amazing because they just absolutely flourish. And it's so far removed from the traditional school setup where you've got the teacher at the front of the classroom, and I am there to teach if that's needed, but mostly I'm facilitating, and just a lot of what I do in that role is constantly risk assessing and just making sure everyone's keeping themselves safe. But to see children, like, they're built to be outside, and just seeing them, like, and because it's usually mixed age groups as well, just magic happens. Like, it's amazing. And obviously I've got my own little wildling. He's nearly 6, so he's been coming to my forest school sessions since he was a baby. So
love it.
his nickname's Mowgli. Like, you just it belongs in the wild up a tree. But it's just because I was always, like, growing up in Donegal, like next to the beach, and I'm actually beach schools qualified as well. So that's the vision one day, to have a beautiful outdoor provision, like in a woodland that's close to the sea. But yeah, I could never go back into a classroom now. And
I get it. Like, I have friends who have their children are being homeschooled, either forest schooled, and then there's other, there's Steiner, and then there's that other one I can't remember the name of, but there's like so many different approaches to schooling, but I love most of them are now lean into the same as forest schooling. It's like, it's self-led.
yes,
It's where they discover what their interests are, and then they deepen into that interest. And like you said a moment ago, like, children, you can see they belong outside, and it's like we are grown up children. We all belong outside, and it's that lovely reminder, like, they're so much closer to nature and to the earth, and of course that nervous system regulation, immune system builder. Like, there's so much to it.
Yes.
And now there's so much more, like, a tactile use of hands, and they're a handy eye court. Like, there's so much to it. Like, it's easy to just be like, oh, forest school, and not really know what all that it brings. Sorry, I'm just fixing my mic here. What all that it can bring for somebody, like.
Yeah, it's like that child-led approach, and using play as a vehicle for learning. Like, and I think because as an early years, like, educator, one of the biggest parts of your skill set is having the ability to stand back and observe what the children are doing, and knowing when to intervene and when to step back. And more often than not, like, you're not really needed. Like, and we as adults generally, like, we are far too quick to jump in and help children, which is actually disempowering them. When you just watch what happens, either one of their peers will come and help them, or they'll ask for help, and that's like that's really important to have the confidence to ask for help as well. But if you jump in before that, you're robbing them of that opportunity. It's just, there's so much to it, and it's amazing to see how it builds children's self-esteem and their confidence in their own abilities, and like innately they are so much more connected to nature anyway. And the other thing we do as adults is we are so risk averse, and like we're constantly projecting our fear
The whole
onto
world
children.
is risk averse.
Like as soon as you step out the door, you'll hear, if you're in a park with kids, slow down, you're climbing too high, and of course we want our children to be safe, but if we can just allow them to explore what their own limits are and their own, they have to make mistakes to learn, and it's giving them the safe environment to do that, and it builds resilience as well, and perseverance. But they are like, children are not given enough credit because they're capable of so much more than we give them credit for. And like, if we just get out of the way and hold the space for them to just be in their essence and follow their interests, as you say, like, they will learn so much more about every part of life and not just academics. But within that, they're measuring their, that all feeds in a really subtle way, but it's real life experience. So it's going to, there's something about through play, the synapses in the brain. So it takes is it 200 repetitions for a child to learn something through like traditional rote learning, but through play it's, I can't remember the exact figures now, but basically it's a lot less. So yeah, it's really interesting.
And I love that you saying there that they're going to, the other part that is the bit that we don't create enough space for is learning their limitations, because they will learn eventually their limitations, and how good that is for their resilience and personal safety and learning boundaries. And just as you were speaking, knowing where our conversation is headed, because we've talked in depth today, but space holding in that way for children, and it kind of feeds into where you foresee your trajectory of work, like being able to hold people. It's almost like a right, you're creating a rite of passage and initiatory experiences and force play for children to understand their where they are in their life and their age, and like, not age as we use age as a number as a way to define things, but their general growth periods of what their capacity is and what's okay and what's not for them and all the rest. And yeah, that space holding for that is so important, in creating that safety and that boundary around it. And I feel like even in adulthood, for the different things that we all go through, and like the biggest initiatory experiences that we all experience is life, birth and death, birth, life, death, but birth and death are the two biggest. Massively. And I know like your journey has been this beautiful marrying of birth and death.
Yeah, and nature itself, as we know, is like the greatest teacher of all, and for children to be outside all year round and see those cycles of death and rebirth, and in really tangible ways, from like you might discover a dead bird, or and that sparks off a massive learning opportunity, to how the trees shed their leaves every autumn and that continual cycle. But yeah, it's just an amazing environment to facilitate learning in, and I'm so passionate about it, and I'm so passionate about children being connected to the world around them, and knowing the whole evolution of the lands that we're on, and the stories and the folklore, and especially in Ireland, like there's just so much magic in there, and like the toadstools and the different folklore and the trees and stuff. And I know Naomi, who's been on the podcast, she's really passionate about that as well. And it's amazing to see that we are now starting to see the importance of that and take responsibility for passing that knowledge on to the next generation, because it is vital, so important.
And that kind of feeds into your work as well. Like, I know you've experience with Reiki, and of late you've also kind of been initiated into Imbas. Would you tell us a wee bit about that?
Sure, yeah. So through different life experiences, I found Reiki and became attuned to that, and that's been a big part of my work for the last few years, and it's been incredible. But in the last, I would say, 2 to 3 years, I have felt, because I actually don't live in Ireland, and I haven't lived in Ireland for a long time, I felt this really massive pull to return and come back, but not only that, to reconnect to my roots as, like, what does it mean to me to be a woman of the land of Ireland, and just going on a journey with that.
And I can't speak to it right now, but there's a beautiful soul who is a queen of Irish who's going to be coming on, and we'll be talking all about that in another episode. But it's beautiful to know that you're on this journey with energy work and embodying that more. And again, this all feeds into the work with death that is coming.
So yeah, I am happy to share that part of my journey. So yeah, I would say it's so funny how we go through life, isn't it? And you have this plan, and I went to university and I was studying to be a teacher, and that was it for me. I was just going to be a teacher and be one of those, you know, wee teachers that has been at the same school for 40 odd years and then retire, and then
So you
go
thought,
on wee cruises every year and all that.
and the universe laughed when you had that plan. I was like, is that what you think
No
is going to
chance,
happen,
dirty
Katie?
pants.
Yeah, no chance.
Yeah, life had other plans, definitely. So I would say, like, the last 10 years have been so instrumental in shaping the woman I now am, and I'm still becoming, and also sort of redirecting me to my soul purpose and why I'm here. And just initiation after initiation, as is the way. So 10 years ago in December, so I'm one of 4 children. I'm the youngest and only girl. Some would say spoiled rotten. Absolute tomboy. But the brother next up to me, he's 15 months older than me, Gavin, and we were like Irish twins, just stuck at the hip. And 10 years ago in December, he sadly died, and that whole journey just totally changed the trajectory of my life. And I feel like the more that these stories are shared and the more we have these conversations, we can, you know, my intention and my hope is that we can reframe our stories and narratives around death and reframe how we view it, so that it's actually not something we run away from our whole life, but like we can embrace. So that was sort of the beginning of when I was 19, that was my first real experience of bereavement. And I've really been sitting with the word grief for the last year, because you say the word grief and people automatically think bereavement. But, you know, in the last 2 years, I've experienced at least 3 different types of grief, which I can speak about more onto in a minute. But I like losing, you know, my granny and all that when I was 19.
So that was your first bereavement?
Of
death?
Death. Well,
yeah.
actually, my mum's, you know, one of these aunties in life that's not actually related. So my auntie Sheena, like my mum's best friend, she never had any children. So we were like her surrogate kids, and she died when I was 19, and then later that year my granny died. So it was like double whammy. And I realised you're 19 anyway as well, like it's not, you know, your brain's still like
Developing,
not fully formed, does it? So it became apparent to me even back then, like I was not equipped to deal with bereavement, because you're never taught. Like nobody says to you, right, well, you know, and it's never going to be one size fits all. So that hit me quite hard, and I didn't handle it great, but as with anything, you're doing the best with what you have in the moment. And then a few years later, my other granny died, and that was a different experience. But then when Gavin died, that was, so just to give a bit of context, Gavin lived in America, where my other brother still lives, and he was just married to a lovely American girl, Maureen, and it hadn't been well, and it was just, go to the doctor, no, I'm all right.
What age was he?
He was 29 at this point, so he was just married, and then long story short, they misdiagnosed him first, but then they discovered a grapefruit-sized tumour on his liver. So I was living in Hong Kong at the time, so I was flying back and forth to New York from there, and he had a liver resection, so they took out the tumour and half his liver, and I didn't know, maybe you don't know this, your liver regenerates. It's one of the only organs that grows back.
Every 7 years, isn't it? There's it's a 7-year growth period.
Yeah. So what followed then was 15 months of clinical trials, because it was a very rare form of liver cancer I had called fibrolamellar, and because it was so rare, there's no standardized form of treatment, so there's no plan as such. But what subsequently happened was 15 months of basically, there's no other way to really say it, but throwing a load of shit to the wall and seeing what's stuck in terms of treatment. But because it's quite a slow growing cancer, and obviously the tumour was massive, but it soon became apparent that it had spread, and I had secondary cancer all through the body.
When you say it was rare, how rare?
Less than 200 people annually worldwide are diagnosed with this.
Worldwide? Whoa.
And it primarily affects younger people. So it was, I know we spoke on it a lot earlier, but it was so surreal to watch. And then in the middle of it all, Gavin's wife became pregnant. So he was just getting thinner and weaker as time went on. She was getting bigger, and it was this massive paradox of life unfolding before your eyes. And December 15th 2015 was when I died, and it was very traumatic in a lot of ways, but seeing somebody I was 29 then, at that time he was 30 when he died, and seeing somebody in that age bracket so close to you, and obviously being your brother as well, it does something to my psyche that I still can't find words for it, you know what I mean? And I'm sure there's people listening to this that have experienced similar in terms of bereavement and loss, and can maybe sort of feel into that.
It's a shattering, I feel.
Oh my God,
a rupture that is, I think of that, I remember seeing somebody had said about grief, and I was like, that's exactly my understanding and experience of it. It's I'm not even going to try and attempt to name it, but it's a pottery from, I think it's China.
Yes.
Where it's broken, and there's loads of cracks in it, and then they pour this gold into the cracks. And for me, that's it. It's you're ruptured. And you are forever ruptured. It's it ruptures your psyche in a way that you will never be the same person.
No.
After a tragic, traumatic loss like that. You just aren't. I think every grief changes you, but it's every single passing is so unique, because every relationship is so unique, and you're at different stages and phases of life, and each person is at a different stage and phase of life, and it's all about how it happened plays into it as well. But yeah, it's it's that rupture, but in time. And I know no one ever wants to hear this, especially it's all about the timing of when you say this to the person.
Yes.
But there is a gold in it. You can't find it.
No. And I was saying to you earlier, birth and death are like two of those experiences in life, like that have to be experienced to be like, it's a felt loved experience. And it doesn't matter how much detail somebody goes into sharing that experience with you, like you can't feel that until you feel it, you know what I mean, nearly. It's like and it is massively like a rite of passage and absolute initiation. And you know, that really opened my eyes to like the whole big pharma thing as well, and like how dis-ease is treated. And that's another conversation, but it was really hard to watch. And then 3 weeks after Gavin died, his first son was born, Eamon, which was just like so bittersweet. And you know, what a beautiful gift he left us behind. Like, you know, this extension of him, who is a beautiful boy, and we love him to bits. And it's just that, you know, you were sharing your own stories earlier about this, like, it's nearly like one in, one out, doesn't it? Like,
it sort of feels like times.
So, and you know, I went back to Hong Kong and there was no shared memories there with Gavin, and nobody there that really knew him. And I fell into a really deep hole of PTSD and depression, and I could not function. Like, and a woman I was working with at the time, you know, like an energy worker and life coach, she said to me the first session I had with her after Gavin died, she was like, there are gifts of learning in this experience. And I was like,
fuck off.
Fuck away off, would you?
Right off. I'd like my brother back. Fuck your lessons.
I was not ready to hear it, but she was right.
Of course,
she was right. What time it all became like, right. And do you know, so many lessons on it, and obviously I would rather have my brother here with me, but
well, he is.
He'll always be with me, but it's what's the word, like to get to that point where you can see the gifts of learning from that really traumatic shitty experience. It's like, it's nearly like a liberation or like a freedom that comes with it. And it's like, fuck, this is there's medicine in it. And like the growth and expansion, like literally when he died, it just, as I said earlier, it just totally changed my whole perspective on life. I ended up leaving my career, like it just filled me with this like fire in the belly after obviously I had that period after of you know, really struggling to come to terms with what had happened and adjusting to life without him. But coming through out the other end of that, there was like this, like, I have to live life for him type attitude. And, you know, what would Gavin do was like a permanent mantra in my head. And it was a massive initiation. And this whole thing about grief being like with bereavement in particular, like the 12 stages, like
7 stages of grief.
My own experience of that, this is not going to be, maybe that really resonates with some people, but for me it just was crack bullshit. Like, it was just like how can you put down on paper, like, you know, this is what's going to happen and when. Like, it was just, and I think that made me feel worse in a way, because I was like, oh, like, why am I not at the next day? You want like the dummy's guide to get through like a bereavement would be dead helpful.
Boom boom.
Well, not intended.
Love it.
But and that, like, it's important to have, you know,
laughter,
to laugh as well. Like, it's
course.
but it was a really, really difficult journey. And I get married. Gavin died in the December, and I got married in the following August. And I was saying to you earlier, like, his whole attitude, like, when he was moving through what he was moving through, was so inspirational, but he wasn't trying to be inspiring. Do you know what I mean? He was just in it, and he was in denial for quite a while. But even like when it came to accept what was happening and that it was imminent, like even the way he handled that was just like, Jesus, like how like, you know, you've got a baby on the way. And it was just it was
like, so just I really, because earlier when we were talking about this and whether we would be talking about this, I mean, you were making me cry just sharing the story. And I feel like we need for me, the thing that hit home was, this is a young man. He had just got married. The day of his wedding, he'd been throwing up in like almost denial, but being like a typical, the very typical masculine, being like, I'm grand, it'll be fine, it's a wee bug, blah blah blah, and still continued to be ill. And then it was like, right, I do actually have to go look at this. And then finding out this fucking, first of all, he misdiagnosed, then it continues. And shortly after, getting this huge diagnosis, this life-changing, that you're basically not going to live. Yeah. And when did he find out his wife was pregnant?
So
like, it was all in the one time frame, wasn't it?
That was an so August. It was he died in the December. So I remember they did the announcement of the baby coming like around her birthday in August. So she was a few months on by then. But it was very much when we heard like Maureen was expecting, like it was very much like, oh, it's amazing, but how is this going to pan out? And yeah, it was just
like knowing that he had to navigate on his deathbed, and I like that denial is that I have to live because there's a baby coming and I have to be there, and I have to, like, this is my way in, and like navigating then when the reality hit home for him that he wouldn't be there.
I will never forget that moment. Like, he'd had a pretty bad episode and he was in ICU, and the doctor came in and was talking to him about intubation, and he just sort of looked up at us and you could see the penny dropping. He was like, because when he was initially diagnosed, the doctor said to him, your best case scenario would be 5 years. And same as we all would do, he grabbed onto that hope, and 5 years, and he was adamant he was getting 5 years, and it was like, you know, less than a year and a half in the end up. And from then it was fairly quick, you know, from that moment of realising. But do you know what one of the gifts in that, Ruth, was? Like, my experience of bereavement and death has been with a terminal illness. So, you know, my daddy last year as well, and I can't comprehend the process that you would have to go through for somebody, you know, like if somebody died unexpectedly and suddenly, that's a whole other kettle of fish. I can only speak into, you know, my own experience, but one of the gifts of that is we got to say everything we wanted to say. And 2 days before he died, he like could hardly like move anything, and he's writing us a card for a wedding day, give it to my mum to read on the day of the wedding, like, and recording storybooks for his wee baby. And they knew they were having a boy, and they picked the name Eamon. And I was like, and Gavin, I was like, wee old man name Eamon, like, what he had. And since then, like, I've become really interested in what names mean. And Eamon means guardian, and there was him recording the wee storybook, like, look after your mommy and all this. But like, just integrating that whole experience really shifted my whole worldview. And I had really bad health anxiety after that. Like, I was terrified that something was going to happen to me. So I was going getting every test done, and just I was in a constant state of hyper anxiety, and just it's understandable when you think about it.
100%.
Having a front row seat to that for 15 months, but So there was a lot that came with it, but one of the gifts was definitely, you know, having that time and getting to say what we wanted to say, and there was nothing left unsaid, which I see as a gift. So that was a mad journey, and then we moved back to UK 7 or 8 years ago, and
it changed your journey. I feel like I mean, your daddy's passing is raw, and it's not like, how long is it now?
It was just a year past last week, but
like, the symmetry and I would really like to speak into that, because I feel like your brother's passing opened all these doors, and I feel like your daddy's passing closed all these doors, and it's like, and they're together and buzzing with life now and listening and watching and being like, go on, Katie. You know, but like, you know, I do like the healing that I know that's, and there'll be people who hear that and be like, how could your daddy's passing be healing? Of course, it's still horrific. It's still a loss. It's still like your daddy. It's not taking away or diminishing that at all. But for what it changed as a narrative for you around death.
Massively, So in October 2023, my daddy took unwell and turned out he had stage 4 glioblastoma, which is a brain tumour. So what was he told? 18 months, I don't know, 3 years, I think they said, best case scenario. And I get 10 months. So because, you know, being through what we'd been through with Gavin, and part of that was like, Gavin was never on his own in the hospital. And like, you know, we all pulled together as a family, and we tended them in the ways that we could. And then going through this again with my daddy was, as you said, there's so many parallels, but also a lot of differences too. And one of the main things is, you know, that relationship, like the child and parent relationship and the sibling relationship, to step under the role of caregiver then was, it wasn't even a conscious decision. Like, I just, you know, you just do it. But because we'd been through the experience with Gavin, I feel that it gave us some strength and fortitude to hold my dad through his process in a more grounded way, and in some ways we knew what to expect. And it was like, so he took unwell in October 2023, and then he died in August last year. And what we did know is that because Gavin died in the hospital and it was extremely traumatic for everybody, we knew that we wanted to avoid that for my dad as much as possible. So he had brain surgery, and they don't make this caliber of man anymore. Like, I think back to all the things my dad went through in his life, like physically, emotionally, losing his son, like he had prostate cancer at one point. And did you ever see that Peter Kay sketch where he talks about the biscuits?
Yes.
Dipping them in the tea. My dad was like a hobnob, right? So it didn't matter when like life threw at him. He's like, dip me again. Dip me. I'm not crumbling. Like, no way. For anybody that knew him can testify to it. But do you know what I mean? That generation of men that were just like, could turn their hand to anything, and just, and there was also wounding within all that as well. But so like watching your big strong daddy become really frail and losing his independence, like that was really hard. But I had done a course in England called Liminal Time, and it was just a 1-day course. But I knew that I wanted to change my relationship with death, especially now that it was staring me in the face again. So I did this course, and it basically took you through these 13 steps of ways that you can tend to a loved one as they come to your life. And you were really put on it. It was like, right, choose a person. And at this point, I knew what was coming with my daddy. And, you know, it's like, well, how can you look after them and practical ways in the lead up to the death, but also emotionally and spiritually, like how can you hold that space, and then really practical things about like when they actually die, like how can you tend to the body, and how can you really honor them as a person in the essence of who they were, and the funeral and the wake, and just really like give voice to the legacy that they're going to be leaving behind. So it was obviously a very emotional day, but it was so it was just the perfect timing, because I literally got to go and put it all into practice straight away pretty much. So I was back here and looking after him, and you know, alongside my mother and my brothers, and there were so many beautiful moments of connection. I think once I was still having to come to terms with the fact I was going to lose my daddy, and like we were like that, like youngest and only girl, daddy's girl. But he was always so appreciative of everything we did for him, and he would voice that. And towards the end, you know, like it's actually a really, really beautiful thing to hold space for somebody you care about as they're approaching this massive transition and this portal, and to bring ceremony and it, and to bring ritual and love and care and attention. And it was healing in that way, because we knew we had done all we could for him, and he was at home when he died, like, and the house that he'd pretty much built, you know, his own hands, and we lived near Loch Swolly, and the window was open and the sound of the waves was coming through. It was like in the dead of night, and it was just so still. It was beautiful, and it was so peaceful. So being there with him in that moment, which was such a different experience to Gavin's, like that brought so much healing, like it really did. And what I was saying to you earlier was, nobody tells you what the process of dying looks like. Like in this case, I'm obviously not talking about all death, but in the case of somebody with terminal illness, and as the body, you know, starts to shut down and stuff, this is what you can expect to see, or this might happen, or and the moment, like palliative care might sort of, but it's hard for them to say because it's not one size fits all as well. But generically speaking, there are different signs they look out for, and everything that we witnessed with Gavin, we had never witnessed before. So it all automatically went into the trauma box, and like that was just all traumatic. Seeing some of the same things unfold with my dad, I was like, oh my God, I had this like massive light bulb moment of, this is dying. This is what it looks like. And that's okay to, yes, it's uncomfortable to watch and it can be distressing, but this is just what happens when the body's shutting down. So that, having that realization was really helpful for me, and it helped me to embrace isn't the right word. It helped me to accept what was happening on a deeper level. And I, like, even wee things like in the last 3 days, my daddy was pretty much unconscious, and like obviously can still hear. So I was reading him poetry and playing music and giving him foot rubs, and like it really was like the carers were only working with him for 2 weeks, but like he had them all wrapped around his wee finger. Like I walked out one day and there was he was unconscious at this time, but they had decorated his bed with his Liverpool scarf and all, and I had one on one side massaging this hand and one on the other side massaging that hand. My mum always jokes
it's
like
just a king just getting tended,
but at any given time he always had woman looking after him, like so that was the case right up until the end. But like just for him to be in his own home environment, and for him himself, like it gives me great peace and comfort to know that, you know, he was where he wanted to be, and that we were all there. And the night before he died, I was telling you earlier, like we had this incredible experience where, you know, it's an honour and a privilege to be there when somebody's preparing, when the soul is preparing to leave the body. It's like incredible to watch when you can get into that headspace of acceptance that this is going to happen, and seeing it for the sacred process that it is, because it is so sacred. And it's so quite often as people are about to die, they might like raise their hands up or say a name of somebody, like, and the night before, like, he was bringing his hands up and we were like, Gavin's waiting for you, and there was this battery operated light in the room and it was just flickering like mad, and the energy in the room, like, you could just feel it was incredible. And I just had these moments of, it's an absolute honor to be sitting here right now, and yes, it's difficult, it's painful, it's sore, but it's also beautiful in its own way as well. So I like, and this just then sparked off this whole thing, like, when my daddy died then, and like my brothers, tended to him, they like trimmed his wee beard and stuff, and even all that, like, we're so conditioned to be like, oh, ugh, that, it's just horrible, not nice to think about.
Such a lovely process for processing grief is the hands-on of working with your loved one's body after they've passed. And as you know, so my work with the womb, it's all birth and death rituals, and it's all about both the womb is a portal of birth and death for people, and what I mean by that is it's not always life that is birthed from the womb, and people carry, like, in their DNA and in their memory and emotion in their body, the pain of trauma and death and all the rest in their womb. So a lot of this work that I do is around death as much as birth, and it's like tending to somebody's body when they've passed, and it's such a beautiful, loving thing. And people, like, you can get caught up in your head. You could, when you're not there, it's all about the process, isn't it? When you've been with somebody the whole way through the process to their last breath, and they're gone, then they're still there. Their body's still there. So it's not like suddenly your brain goes, oh. You've been through the birth or the death portal with them. So it's easier to put your hands on their body. And like we talked about this earlier, that part of womb work and people that carry that lineage of womb wisdom and womb keeping would also be the death keepers as well. There's midwife and birth, but there's midwife and death, and you were midwifing your father through his death. And like I said to you, we talk about free birth and people birthing at home and free birth, but there's such a thing as free death as well. That it's death on your terms of, I'm not saying to take your own, taking your own life, that's a whole other conversation for another time, but for the case of when you know that it's coming, that you choose how that looks, and it's filled with so much intention and receiving as well, that the person is being able to receive. And there's this great, it's the infinity symbol, isn't it? Giving and receiving. By you being able to give so much to your daddy, you were receiving so much as well. And
so much.
And so it changes our relationship with death, because our medical model has removed death from our homes. And I think we're very blessed here in Ireland. In Ireland, we're still very rooted in connection to our community tribal roots with death, that we still wake the body at a home, and we have a 2-night wake, and people touch the body, and we're not as distant. Whereas I know in England, the body's taken away. Sometimes it's just, you don't see the person, and it's very removed, and it ruins, I believe, a part of the process of grieving. That the acceptance part is having that time with the person after their passing, and celebrating their life, and being able to literally touch death in that way. There's it does something to the synapses in the brain when you can feel the skin cooling, and like you understand, the animal body understands this person is here no more in a way. And it does, it's like our ancestors here, and it wasn't far back. Like I spoke to my mum about this, and my granny's families and her grandparents. That's what they did when the when the person passed. The woman, the aunts, the sisters, the mothers, they would have came and washed the body, and they embalmed the body. The undertaker wasn't a thing. He came and maybe took them, and they buried or dug the plot or whatever. But it was the woman that tended to the body.
Mm. The men of the family used to dig the graves.
Yeah,
and the woman would bring sandwiches and like whiskey.
Mm-hmm.
There's a brilliant documentary on Netflix called, I think it's called The Undertaker, but it's about this undertaker down the country, and it's a really good insight. And I know this is it's going to be uncomfortable for people to even that people have probably switched off by now. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, it's uncomfortable to listen to, and it's uncomfortable to talk about. But I think the more that we can rewrite this narrative that, you know, death is something to be afraid of, and it's something to be avoided, and, you know, we're all terrified of it. But if we can come to a place where we can accept that it's going to happen to us, because it's happening to all of us, and prepare as much as possible, and take ownership of, like, what do you want your send off to look like? Like, we've all got that control and opportunity to, like, you know, I still need to, like, put it on paper, but I know exactly what I want for my wake and funeral, and I feel it's so important to speak that out loud or write it down for family members. And I was at a funeral recently, and, you know, I said to somebody, like, because it was a close family friend, and she, you know, she didn't have a spouse, she didn't have children, but she had left a letter of her wishes. And I was like, that's so important. And I was having a conversation with somebody, and I said, well, what do you want when you die? And I was like, I'll let everyone else sort that out. And I was like, but why would you, like, and because he just doesn't want to go there. He can't go there and say it.
This is the thing, right? Because my parents are elderly now, and my mum has an aversion to death because she's had so many traumas, and now she's coming around because I talk to her about it a lot in a loving, compassionate way. But I'm like, it's not even that you have a choice, but it lifts such a burden from your loved ones. Massively. You're grieving you being gone. It's selfish. You're like, I don't want to look at it, and I'm just not going to do anything about it. But by you leaving that, like, we've had so many initiations of death in my life, and me and Jason's life together. There's just been, it's visited, our good old friend has knocked on the door many, many times at this stage, and there is a thing that happens over time where you do become more accepting, and it's just like, right, okay, I know where we're going with this. But the many rooms I've been in where people are trying to decide what's the best reading, and who should do what, and how not to hurt somebody, and when somebody's falling apart, are they really the person? And yet when I've had family who we knew what they wanted, and the fortitude that people could find when they knew it was asked of them, it was the desire of the person. It just changed the dynamic, and it brought in a way joy and celebration to the funeral, or, you know, to the event that wouldn't have been present otherwise. And, like, this is the beauty of life, isn't it? That the fact that you can hold these two polarities in your body at a given moment, where your heart is absolutely shattered to pieces, but you can laugh your ass off about all the crazy shit somebody did on memories and all the beautiful, and hearing, like, that's I think is one of the truest gifts of an Irish wake. Yes. Is all the gifts of the stories of all this crazy stuff, because you don't, like, we all touch so many lives.
Yes.
And you leave every interaction you have, all of us have with somebody, especially positive, and even some of the negatives, because we can laugh about some of them. Like, when you're past, those people that, if they're still there after you, will be bringing those stories into your family's homes. Well, did you know that Katie did this, or that Ruth did that, or whatever the case is. And you'll be like, what? Never knew it.
Aye.
And that's the beauty, isn't it, of it? Like,
Definitely.
you see how far we touch lives.
Aye. And that, I feel that's so important to keep having those conversations and share those memories. And like, you know, my dad was only in my son's life for a few short years, but like, we talk about him every day, and I've made him a photo book of, you know, photos of them together. And like my son, another thing is how we shield children from death. And, you know, obviously I can only speak under my own experience and my own sort of approach with this, but they're so much more accepting, and they, you know, we shield them. We're not shielding them from death, we're shielding them from our fear of death. And do you know what I mean? Like, when, you know, like my mother never got to go to her father's funeral, and that still weighs on her. And I just feel like my son was there for the wake, and it was actually really beautiful to watch, because I had him, you know, really well prepared. That he was in the house that evening, but he hadn't seen my daddy in a couple of weeks, because the last time I saw him, my daddy was at himself, and I felt that was a good place to leave it. But I'd explained to him that Granda died in the night, and he's gone to get ready, and they'll be coming back in a box, and they'll be taking the lid off the box and all this. And it's really important for me, for my son to see that as, you know, being half Irish as well. Like, this is a really strong part of his heritage and his roots. And I was watching him whenever my daddy came back in the house, and they lifted the lid off the coffin, and you can see the cogs turning nearly. He was like, he looks like he's sleeping. But throughout the 2 days of the wake, like, it was very busy, and my dad was laid out in the living room next to the window, and on the other side of the window, during COVID, he had built, he was so creative, we putting greens out in the garden, so all his grandchildren were out playing in the putting greens. Aww. It was like both sides of the window. It was really special, like,
life while there's,
and what he had created. And
well,
my wee boy would come in, like, periodically through the day, totally ignore me, and he would go over to the coffin where my dad was, and it was the same order every time. He would pat his hand, stroke his hair, just stand there for a wee minute, and run back out again. And it was amazing to watch. And I was like, it's amazing to see that he can, you know, that's his way of processing and integrating. And he still is, obviously, you know, a young mind, and, you know, he asks questions. And my son obviously never got to meet my brother. And, you know, we were over in America there a few months ago, and watching my son and Gavin's son playing together, like, it was bittersweet. And just thinking, I should be here next to me, and we should be, you know. But anyway, I, like, my son never met my brother, but my son talks to my brother. Like, I definitely think kids have this ability to, like, pick up on energy, and, you know, he's so intuitive. And he'll chat away to him out of the blue, or we'll be somewhere, and he's like, he looks like Uncle Gavin, so it must be a hello from Uncle Gavin, or because he looks at photos and stuff. But we talk about him every day, and I feel that's really important as well. Like, those ongoing conversations, and just remembrance of that person. But what you were saying about, you know, midwife and people through, like, I really am feeling that call. Like, what I've experienced is increasingly informing the space that I hold. And I just feel like that is the direction where I'm going. I don't know what that looks like yet, but I feel the call to explore on a deeper level of how I can be of service in that way to families and people that are, you know, coming to the end of life. There's this thing called death cleaning as well. Have you heard of that? Where, like, you organise your house and declutter and stuff.
Making it easier for your... I've talked to my mum about this as well. My poor mum. But for those that don't know, my dad has Alzheimer's and dementia, so it is like all the conversations with mum about this and I'm like, because they're getting older, and I'm like, you need to get the house in order. And what I mean is, if you have pieces that you really want to go to people, mark them now on the back. Like, and I know that might sound really morbid to people, but this is the thing. Why leave that to someone you love to have that, carry that responsibility to work out? And I was like, you can navigate that now. You can even ask. And I have to say, I'm very proud of my mum, because she has adopted this thing where she's given all of us stuff over the last couple of years, particularly because there's, like I say, she's had many death initiations, so it's like it is landing, because it comes with the age of the crone, doesn't it? Like it comes with the winter of your life. She's autumn, she's not fully winter, but she's getting there. And like, she has started giving things to people now that she wants to give them now, and I'm like, why are you giving that away now? And she's all, because why wait till I'm dead when I can enjoy seeing them have it now? And I'm like, I love that. Yes. That's amazing.
My mum started doing the same.
I think it's a brilliant process. Yeah. It's a brilliant, they get to enjoy seeing you receive the thing. Yeah. And if it's something they're not particularly attached to, and I think that's a really healthy, that we can all adopt, of, you know, letting go of things, decluttering, whatever, because we get attached to things. And there's another episode in the podcast where there's a guest, Tyrell, like, I'm not sure where this will land, before or after, but like, Ty is, like, to me, such a an inspiration around detachment from the material world. And I'm like, this is such a brilliant prep, because the ultimate detachment from the material realm is your body. You're going to detach from this mortal coil at some point.
We arrive on our own and we leave on our own. And I think, as you say, the more we can prepare for it, have the difficult conversations, like not the easier it's going to be, but in some ways the easier it will be.
For somebody somewhere, it Definitely makes life easier. And like, I'm so glad you spoke to, like, your two experiences have been the big right close in your own family. Like, there's nothing I feel that hits quite as hard as your own immediate kin. Not to say that there's other relationships that are equally as impactful, of course, depending on your relationship, obviously, with your next of kin, but and that they're both terminal. And as I spoke to you earlier, I was sharing with Katie that a lot of my initiations with death, quite a lot of them have been tragic, unforeseen death that has been very quick, and it is a very different experience. And yet I can't help but feel that if the people that we've lost in those ways were living into a bit more of the prep side of things, if we all did that, imagine if we all were so in tune with death, like, first of all, how we would navigate everyday life, how we would show up. Like, you spoke to how after, like, you've been living in some way for Gavin, like the life that he never got to live. And I suppose it's that kind of realization that, well, every day is a gift. Definitely. We're all on borrowed time in a way. Like, from the moment we get here, it's like, well, enjoy every second, because you don't know how long you got.
Yeah, that's definitely one of the gifts as well. It's like, and there's always a choice, isn't there? And like, you know, it wasn't until I had my son that I could really begin to empathise with what my brother's wife went through, like giving birth to your first child 3 weeks after burying your husband. And I know, like, this is not an uncommon story. Like, so many people are carrying loss on a deep level. And, you know, we were speaking about earlier about, well, I'm going to go off on the tangent here, but like grief as an umbrella. And it's interesting to me that speaking about grief, people automatically go to bereavement or like, you know, the death of somebody. But, you know, grief for me, in my own experience, like it's come in so many different forms. And it's, again, these conversations that are not really being had, like the grief of your marriage breaking down and you having to live this whole new version of life and let go of the version of life you thought you were going to live. Nothing prepared me for that. Like that, like in the last 2 years, death, divorce, it's been initiation after initiation. But again, the expansion and growth, but it's allowing yourself to get down in that well, as you've mentioned before on one of the other episodes. Like, allow yourself to go and sit there and feel it, because again, we're so conditioned, and society is not set up to be conducive to wallowing in your grief. But in some cultures around the world, like, you are exempt from daily life and society for up to a year if you lose an immediate family member. Like,
I love
how
it.
much sense does that make?
It's
Because
like,
on a physiological level, your body is like fragmented, like the physical. And I, like, I was saying to you earlier, and you were like, give yourself a bit of slack here, like, because I'm like, oh, the brain fog, the sleep disruption, the fatigue, especially coming up to anniversaries, like, it was my dad's first anniversary. Your body is reliving everything that's happened in the run up to that loss. But who's talking about that? Who's providing support for that? Who's giving the tools to help navigate your way through that? And I know there's some amazing work happening, and it really seems to be now that there are more and more spaces becoming available for grief tending. And we were talking about Keenan as well, weren't we? Like, this old Irish tradition where women of the village would be brought into the wake house to be that outward expression of grief. And as women, we've got this whole thing with our voice anyway, as Irish women especially, like, where it's very difficult to give yourself permission to release through the voice and the throat. And I know this is a passion of yours as well. And like, when I allow myself to go there, dear God, like the catharsis of it and the release and the just, it's primal, and it's so needed. But again, it's like, once the funeral's over, society's like, right, well,
box that off. There you go. Come back to your work in 3 days to 5 days. Take a week off there for that grief and come back. Sure, not a bother. Just box it off there. But even like the stories people tell themselves around the funeral of like, hold it in, don't cry, be strong. And like, this is something I had to navigate with my internal processes around grief, because I was initiated into a traumatic grief at 12 years of age, which it is the 30-year anniversary today of my cousin Jude, who died. And that was like that's a whole other story. But yeah, his passing was massive for all of our family. It rippled out like most traumatic deaths do. And like, I've kind of lost my train of thought there. What was I going to say? Because it just hit me that I'm like, fuck,
12 o'clock at night.
No, it hit me that it's 30 years today. And like I said this to you earlier, the synchronicity that we were bringing a grief conversation, and I've been feeling a lot into my own grief of my own in my own life in the last year, and there's just been a lot today. I'm just like, this is all landing so divinely. But there was something I was going to say and I've lost my train of thought. What were we speaking to a moment ago?
I was saying about like the physical side effects of grief. And
yes, that was it. So like, something like what has been showing up is even like, you might not remember. So this is 30 years of passing, and things like when you get that phone call or for an initial diagnosis, and you're like, I'm having pains today in my chest and what it is, and then you look and it's like, oh, that's right, this day 1 year ago or 2 years or whatever it is. And it's like the body remembers
massively.
And that was what it was with Jude's death. I took on a role of being the caregiver, with even at the wake I was giving out tissues, and I was only 12, like, and I got rewarded with "you're a great girl," so I fed into it even more. But how I internalized this throughout my life as being, whenever grief would visit, when death would visit, I would be strong for the people around me. And with my womb work, what I have learnt to unpack is there's great strength that comes from being courageous in your vulnerability and allow yourself to break. And it's heartbreaking to witness, and it's heartbreaking to hear for everybody there. And like, we've all been at those traumatic for me. There has been a lot of traumatic passings that like are unexpected and unforeseen, and when the person closest to somebody is falling apart, and you can just see the wave of the grief across everybody that's there at a funeral, and everyone's feeling it, and it's like this is collective catharsis, and it's needed. And why do we internalize and hold this by like, let's be strong? And I'm like, what the fuck? This is the one time in your life you get to be whatever the fuck you need to be. Just allow yourself to feel it and be it. And I know it's so overwhelming. We talked about this, that grief is so, especially that well, not especially, all grief and all the ways can be so overwhelming that we almost have to compartmentalize, and we go into automatic functions and we're doing shit, and then you look back and be like, how the fuck did I make dinner that day? Or like put what I was but it's like our day-to-day processes are the thing that helps us survive the moment. It's like the many, because in Jason's family there's been many passings, and all the women come together in the kitchen, and the men are out in the room, and the stories are sharing, and the laughs are having, and this is the wake. And but there's the point that comes after the funeral, and when they're having the tea and everyone's back at the house, and there's the quiet, the quietness sets in then, and they're in the kitchen cleaning, and then it's like, no, this is my coping catharsis. I need to clean this mug. I might clean the same mug for nearly an hour, but it's just like the automatic. It shows like our everyday routines and processes are part of the guidance, guides us, keeps us going, and steers us through. But it's all part of the process, and it's like, this is the conversations no one ever wants to have. None of us want to actually feel into that deep, dark sting, and yet it is there, and it faces all of us at some point. And if we talk about, I'm always saying about resourcing our listeners and those watching, and I feel like every conversation is a resource. But for me, in my grief journey and in my personal story, which I will talk about in another episode, but I've said to you how much my ritual work has been a resource to me. And like speaking about writing down those wishes and whatever, that is a ritual. And that resources you, and being a bit more like, you feel like you have some kind of you're sovereign and authority over your own life and how the end looks in a way, or after your passing. But it's resourcing those around you. And if you, for loving the people that you love, to resource them in such a difficult time. But these practices, these rituals, they have really carried me through in my birth and death work. And you spoke earlier about rituals with your dad. Can you share a wee bit about wee things? Like, I know reflexology, working with the body, massaging, and
so just making sure his environment was as comfortable as possible. And like, he loved his roses from his garden, so it was like the height of summer, so there's always a wee vase of his roses by the bed. And I had made like a photo board of just through the years, like for him to look at, and hung that on the wall. And we moved the bed so we could look out the window to the sea. And music, like I played like frequency music, and then when it was my brother, like we were taking turns, she noticed it with him, he'd have the bloody rebel songs. I love it. Get my key down.
I love it.
But I just like really tuning into, like, and my dad loved his Reiki, like even before he was diagnosed and stuff, like he'd love a wee bit of Reiki. And it was amazing that he was open to it and was so open to receive that. So just thinking about the senses and environment, and also like another string to my bow is I'm a sound healing practitioner, so the frequency of like our own voices is so healing to us, but like the medicine that comes with hearing the voice of a loved one. So I would just chat to him anyway, and it just soothes the nervous system, and just obviously speaking quite low and in a soft tone, and like reading poetry, and And then we would all gather around him at different times, and like, you know, towards the very end he was unconscious, but you know, we're having the crack and we're laughing and we're joking and telling stories, but it was still part of it. Do you know what I mean? And and it was really interesting, like, because people will comment coming into the house in the last week or so, like, God, the peace in this house, like there's just a feeling of love and peace, and you know, so it was palpable to anyone that was coming in, and it wasn't anything complicated or you know, fancy, or it was just, you know, knowing what makes them comfortable and doing that. And then, you know, I was saying to you before, like there's my mum and dad, like they were together 48 years, and it's her first time now living on her own as an adult, and understandably it was so difficult for her to like see her husband and to sit and just be with it. So to be able to be that bridge and give him, you know, that, you know, and like I can't even imagine like my mum's whole process, but she was so appreciative for that, and I was glad that I was in the space to do it. But it felt like, you know, it just felt like I'm a space holder anyway, but it was just a different level, and it was beautiful in a lot of ways. So it was really special.
I think when we hear the word ritual, it's a loaded word, but really it's just practice and presence, and that's what all the purpose of ritual is. It's intention setting. It's bringing you in to space with deep presence, and that's the intention. When you light a candle, when you take a minute to sit, prune that rose in the garden, bringing it in, putting it in the glass, setting it, and speaking about it, letting them smell it. It's a ritual is like, yes, we have practice where we do these things, but really it's all just about bringing us into the present moment, isn't it? Like,
and even just sitting holding his hand, saying nothing, you know, no, the presence alone, like, definitely. And there were, you know, there are obviously, like, throughout different cultures and stuff, different, like, more sort of ceremonial rituals where, you know, different things are observed. And but for us, like, for the wake period, then it was just about allowing his essence to be felt. So, you know, next day the coffin, there's always that wee table, and we had a golf ball, and we met Liverpool medal, and my dad's nickname was Slates. He was a roofer. Chances are, if you're listening to this podcast, he might have roofed your house.
if you're in Donegal
or Derry,
Slates,
he roofed half of both of them. Slates daily. So I had gotten with a calligraphy, so Bangor blue slates were his favourite to work with. So I had written his name in calligraphy on the slate and had that sitting there. And his headstone's actually made from beautiful slate, Welsh slate. Beautiful. And even that as well, like we had a conversation with my dad about 2 weeks before he died, and we were like, oh, what do you want for the wake? And you know, and he was easy pleased. You know, there wasn't anything. He picked out music, and he wanted the Fury Sweet 16 for your mother.
I love that.
Like it was always thinking about her. Aww. Like it was so like it's a gift. You know, we were talking about like yes, it takes stress out of an already stressful situation if you know what the person wants, but it's such a gift to be able to honor that for them. Yes. Then it's like it just feels
absolutely, yeah.
So and it's hard to believe it's been a year. That's the other thing with grief, like the whole sense of time, like it's funny what it does to your brain. And what you were saying, like you just go on the autopilot, and again, it's having those safe spaces to like just be where you're at with it and not feel like, oh, like I feel like on one level you know that it's all normal, but because the conversations aren't really being had, there's nowhere where you can go and just be met where you're at. Yeah. So I like my intention is to move into creating a space where, you know, that is seen and heard and felt, for all aspects of grief. And it's been a journey. But the other side of it is as well, I had a friend's husband died in England. He was only 36, and when it's a younger person, it's got a different,
It does, yeah.
it hits differently. And the logical part of your brain's like, where's the rhyme and reason in this? Why has this happened? And the only thing that gives me comfort in that scenario is like thinking, right, well, if their death motivates and encourages people to show up a wee bit differently in their lives, like that,
to live more
exactly
presently,
to embrace life, and to, God, when you zoom out and you see what we carry around with us, like on every level, it's so much of it's unnecessary stress, and
the
just
head, the mind, yeah.
We just have all these roadblocks to just
Living,
doing what we're here to do, which is to live life and to enjoy life and to
to live
in the present.
And living in the present is like everything that we talk about. You and I have talked about. This is all a point of all the work that we do is about bringing people back into the body, which brings us back into the present, because I've said this a million times, but it's the only part of us that can only ever live in the now.
Yes.
Because the mind is in the past, present or future at any given moment, but the body always is in the now. And when you come back into the now, and like we were even talking about, you know, like all the ceremony and all the work, and it can be quite intense. And it's like when you've experienced death of someone young, and like even children, and like that's a whole other fucking ball game, like, but it makes you go, fuck me, life is so fleeting and short, just fucking enjoy the ride. Like,
Yeah.
we give ourselves such a hard time, we overthink so much, and it's like, just do, like, go and fucking run naked into the sea if that's what you want to do. Go and do your turkey noises on a podcast. Like, no, but you know, like, do the fucking thing. Like, stop constantly constricting yourself to fit in this fucked up box of society that is a construct that doesn't actually exist. And when your daddy and your brother were lying there on their deathbeds, they didn't give two fucks about the world. They just, their world and their understanding and their family, and what mattered to them is all the things that they lived, and choice, like all those joyful memories. And it's like, that's the whole point of life. And we get so caught up even in the journey of healing, we freaking bash ourselves over the head with fucking healing. And it's like, do you know the whole point of healing, folks, is to arrive at a place that you can be like, I just love life, and I can live and love and joy. And that's the point of healing, of being like, oh Jesus, right, I was never broken to begin with, I'm a whole being, and when I came into this world as a precious wee baby, I was just pure fucking love.
And then it's conditioned already.
And it's like, oh, they want you to be unhappy, so you keep buying all their crap and doing all the crap. But when you're lying there, you're like, all right, love was the key all along. Like,
and that's another one of these gifts of grief. Like, it is like allowing yourself to go down there so that you can then feel what is up there, because it's the polarity of life, as you say. Like, it's just this constant
dance
and just, but it's releasing any guilt as well. I know, like, I've experienced it myself, where after you lose somebody and you're in that grief process, you nearly feel guilty for
loving,
allowing joy to touch you again, and just like, oh fuck, like, but that's what they would want. Like, they don't want us to be, you know, moping about. And it's not, obviously there's a process to go through, but just like, you know, since losing Gavin and my dad, like, I, as well as being the lowest I've ever been, I've also been way up there as well, and experienced joy, like, on a level that I've never experienced before. And I think through my own sort of spiritual journey as well, you know, I have an inner knowing that death is not the end.
Mm.
And it is just a wee transition on day, you know, another, and I know that won't resonate necessarily with everybody, but its energy cannot be destroyed. It can only be transferred.
Yeah.
And it's, you know, that is a scientific fact.
Yeah.
So it's, you know, it's, and I've connected with both of them, and I know they're grand and they're great, and they're still with me every single day. And it's being open to those signs as well. That's a whole other conversation, but that gives me great comfort and peace. And it's like, oh well, how do you, like our wee monkey minds? It's like, you know, I might. So the card Gavin wrote before he died for us to read on our wedding day, it was like, P.S. look out for the white feller. And like, had you said to him a year or two before, like, do you believe in fellers? He would have been like, no. But there he was, look out for the white feather. And halfway through the wedding day, Mum said to me, did you get your white feather? And I was like, no, I haven't noticed one. And then we went over to the pier for a photo, not a bird about, and the big white feather was there. So that's great. But like on a day-to-day basis, it's, you know, it's not even one that you've asked for, but it'll appear, and you just know. It's like, hello. So it's there's that beautiful book we were talking about earlier too, Signs of the Universe. I can't remember who wrote it, and there's a book as well I wanted to mention. I think her name is Catherine Mannix, but that's about death as well. There's so many resources in terms of books and stuff, but I like it's definitely flipped my whole perception on why we're here, and you know what life is, and how can we make the most of it. And it's just been a big initiation, but it has come with gifts of learning.
And just to speak to those who maybe are listening who have had traumatic death, I mean, it's a different journey in a lot of ways, but you arrive at the same place. Like the feeling of, like the feelings are the same. It's the shock obviously is different, and you don't have the same time to process, but where you've arrived at is possible. It is possible to arrive there too. And I think that's the beauty of, because a friend of mine is a death doula, and part of the work she does is working with the family after death, as well as people in terminal journeys, you know. And I think that's a beautiful bit of work, because there is this extra component to unpack for the person left behind after a traumatic death. But just if you have, we know it's different. We do. But just know that if you're on that journey, you can arrive at a place of acceptance as well. And it's a hard road to walk. And thank you for speaking to the 7 stages. I feel like it's not a linear journey, and you can drop into each stage within seconds of one day. You know, like you can be in denial at the beginning, and then you can be angry, and then you can be pleading. All those parts come, and the guilt, and you know, and I do feel like it's a personal journey.
Yes.
And
so individual.
It's so individual, and there is no, like, you hear this a lot, and it's true, there is no time on grief. Like, and I feel like one of the things I've came through my work to arrive at, which is a beautiful place for me, is that not to contain my grief when it arrives. Yeah. So I have, and I've spoke to this before, but I have stood in the middle of a shopping centre bawling my eyes out.
Well, it hits you out of nowhere sometimes. A song, a smell, a memory out of nowhere.
Or you see, have the experience, one of the ones that I find most like, whoa, is when you see somebody and for a split second your brain forgets that they're not here, and you see somebody be like, is that? And then you be like, fuck me, it hits hard. Yeah. And then I'm like, I have a moment for my whole nervous system is not regulated. Do I embrace that in this moment, or do I try to, for the sense of social propriety, close it down? And I've had some beautiful interactions with people from not doing so. Yeah. And what you find is, if you are somebody that's listening and have been, you've felt yourself doing this, just know that 99.9% of the people walking around you in this world are kind and have been there, and you just lock eyes and you know somebody knows.
Yeah.
And they get it.
Mm-hmm.
And at the end of the day, we're all just walking side by side on this road together, like,
Mm-hmm.
and we all get into our in our head boxes, but we're like, you're right here, I can reach out and touch you, you know, we're not distant from each other. That stranger is like that stranger is like somebody who just is somebody's daughter, son, brother, you know, somebody who probably would just want to hug as well in that moment. Do you know what I mean? I've had so many, because I've got really good at just being like, this is an age for me. I'm just gonna feel it.
Definitely.
And part of that journey this is a wee side tangent, but part of that journey has also been able to own when, as somebody that has almost adopted everybody thinks Ruth is always happy and hey, look at it, she's always a happy person. I am intrinsically, like, essentially a happy person, but I have my moments and my days, and when somebody be like, are you okay? I'll be like, well, no, actually I'm not. Or something going on, I'll be like, yep. Yeah. Like, I'll just own it now rather than be like, okay, no, grand, right. Head's falling off, but grand. She's brilliant. Like, kind of.
That needs to be done more as well. Like, we just need to, like,
own it.
And allow ourselves to be vulnerable. And
mm-hmm.
Like, for me, finding ways to express my grief in an outward way. Like, you know, writing for me is so cathartic, and poetry, like writing poetry, and it's very much around me, like, but I don't care, like, it just, and anytime, you know, you go on social media and it's like this curated worldview of, you know, perfection and happiness and joy, and, you know, and also there are sides to it as well where people are sharing their processes and their journeys and that, but anytime I lean into that and just share a poem that I've written about, like part of my brain's like, who's going to want to read a poem about your dad that they've never met? But I'm like, I don't care, it's helping me process this. And like, every single time, the amount of people that message me and they're like, oh, your words have touched me so much, your words have helped me, so it's letting go of that, like, what are people going to think? Or like, I've been there myself, like, before I've had these experiences, I've made judgments on people who choose to share their grief in a certain way, and I'm like, oh, you know, like, like, just putting judgments on it. And I know that maybe that'll be happening on some level when I choose to share, but I honestly do not give a shit. Like, it just, it feels right for me to do that, and even if it helps one person, I
feel like intention's everything with everything, though, isn't it? You can feel the frequency behind, like I've said to you before, it's not the words that's shared, it's the frequency, the energy behind, the intention behind. You can feel the difference. Like, when you share something that you're looking for recognition, or you're seeking out external validation, that's a very different energy to being like, I'm sharing this is an age for me. And straight away, when it's an age for you, it's always a good share. Like, it's an age for me, I'm sharing this, but I'm sharing it because somebody else will read this and hopefully it'll touch their heart and help them. And we need more of that in the world. And it is that reminder, like, I share a lot, and I am an intrinsic, like I said, is that the right word, intrinsic? Mostly positive, and intrinsically, that is the right word, isn't it? Innately, yes. Essentially. Am I right with the right word? All of them are correct in their own way, but essentially I'm a positive person. But, like, I have started being more honest about when I'm not, and be like, I'm kind of flat today. Just being honest and, like, speaking into whatever that is. And it's that kind of, by sharing who we are, you remember we're all connected, and there's so many people being like, thank you for saying that, because I've been feeling that way too. Or definitely. You know, when you're going, right, everybody's jumping onto this thing, and you're going, well, it just doesn't align for me. And if you be the brave person to be like, well, actually, and they're like, oh my God, even us today being like, someone doesn't feel right about that, and you're like, oh my God, thank you, because I've been feeling that too. You know what I mean? Obviously, you speak it where it's safe to do so, but there's times that it's the right thing to share because it heals more than you.
And and talking about my, your purpose then at the beginning, like I was going to say as well, like the first 3 clients I had come to me for one-to-one like energy sessions after my dad died, like they were all new clients for start, so they didn't know, what had been happening. The first 3 people that came on my door, like, sat and talked about their fathers that had died. I was like, wow, like that is definitely such a strong message that like, that people are going to be, do you know what I mean? Like when you've experienced it and lived and breathed it, you can hold space for somebody moving through that on a deeper level to some extent.
Absolutely, 100%. Like I've said to you before, we can only go as deep as we have gone ourselves, and it's like when you've swam in those depths, it's a felt thing.
Yeah,
you can feel it. Your clients, your people that you work with, feel that, and again, this is a testament to what I'm talking about the frequency, the energy behind what you can show up and not speak a word, and you're going to attract in people because it's about the energies, and that comes across even on like the likes of social media. Like the people that are listening to this podcast are people like, because you're like, I know this won't resonate with everybody, and I'm listening going, actually I think it will, because the people that are going to be called into this, either it mightn't resonate straight away because they've been brought to this to hear this conversation, for it to trigger something in them, for them to go ugh, and to go and examine what that means, because that's the whole purpose of this, is to illuminate things, bring it into the light, shed light on things. And I've said this on, if you're new, if this is your first episode, something I say to people all the time is like, when you get the response, that's where you need to go. Don't run away from it, jump in, follow that, like the thing that makes you go it's uncomfortable, because that's where your growth edge is, and that's where the magic lies for you in your development. But yeah, I've lost my train of thought again. My wee brain is like, well,
we literally have not stopped talking
all day. But you know what it is? I'm on like day 3 of my bleed, so I'm like, ooh, computer shutting down. But no, I just I'm excited for what the future holds for you. I totally. That was it. It was about resonating how it does not. I'm like, I've heard this. I have experienced that in my own energy, where I'm like feeling into an age or something that has moved through my own life and through me, and the people have came into my life. I've been like even you today, like there's something that I've been birthing or in the process of, like I'm holding back. I'm not sharing and with people, and yet every fucking conversation I've been like, I looked at Jason and was like, all right, universe, here we go again. And it's like, me on our own.
Just
you're like,
fucking
okay,
do it.
yeah. This is, and like, there is something like, even with like my own journey, as I share with you, which like I say, I will share in another podcast, but like my journey with grief and the depth and the width and the depth and the brevity, all of it that it has brought to my work. Like, you don't know until you've been there. And I know that can be hard. We've all had deaths. Like, I have had bereavements, but I haven't lost my father. I mean, I am losing him. I'm going through grief every day.
That situation, and I know, we've close family friends who've just, been on a journey for over 3 years with Alzheimer's, and that again I cannot comprehend, because it's like a living death, as you say. Like it's just, and it's I can't even imagine.
Well, it's the grief that I live with every day. And it hits me a couple of times a week, and it's just being like, okay, let it come.
Yeah.
And it's a hard one for, like, I feel for Jason navigating that with me, because it's a lot of space holding, because it's like everything you watch on TV or like every film, there's always a thread somewhere, and then it's just like there's times, and depending where I'm at in my cycle, like when it hits and how it hits, and then like all the wee just like being like, oh shit, yeah. Like I actually spoke with navigating and sharing a story. I recorded a sharing, and it was a real age for me because I never talk about it publicly. So this is the first time I've proper spoken to this, but I feel like it's important because we're talking about grief. But I had a moment where I was going through cards. We were cleaning, and I found a card, and it was a card he wrote me. And it was our first year after we had just got married. It was our first Christmas as Mr. and Mrs. And my daddy was very poetic. Like my ability to write like that creativity with words. He was a master wordsmith. And like even speaking about him in the past tense, he was, but he's not. That's the facts of it. Like, but it's this whole mind fuck because you're like, he's here, but I'm saying he was. But yeah, just that busted me open, like finding that, but like I was bawling my eyes out because I'm like, he's not that man now, but he is still him. But like navigating, that was a real age for me. I was like, this is something I'm being invited. One of my mentors was inviting, and it's like authenticity about sharing, and it was about the gift of sharing. Our vulnerabilities as much as anything. And I've been the person that's judged people who've shared their grief, and you're like, oh Jesus, right, would you fucking you're depressing as fuck and like just fucking stop, like, you know. But it's almost
Keep to yourself.
Do you know what it is? For me, it's when you make that your identity.
Yes.
And you become the victim of your circumstance, and that becomes your identity, and this is all you become. It's like the person you meet in the street when you ask them how they are, and then they're like, well, and it's all their illnesses and all their negativity, and you're like, right, so you're in your wee life is happening to me place.
Yes.
And I think that's what you're talking about. You've made those judgments, as have I, and I still hold them. I'll be honest, I'm a human. I find that hard, and it's confronting for me. And part of that is where you're at in your own journey with probably a grief as well, where you're like, I have enough of this. I don't fucking need to be watching and listening to you and yours, and it's too raw. It's just sometimes there's some of it's like, whoa, it's too raw. But then then this has been bringing me back to my own age, and I was like, right. After that heart busted open moment, I had a wee moment, and I was driving, and I was thinking about all the gifts my daddy's Alzheimer's has brought. And like one of the greatest gifts is his soul essence. Now, of course, people change. There's people who have been dotes, like the most docile being their whole lives, and then they have Alzheimer's and they become vicious wee shits. Like, do you know what I mean? But I feel like my daddy always, his life, he was a proud businessman, and there was ego story there and all the rest, but I feel like it brought him back into his essence because all the ego traps dropped away. And the gift that it brought is he only lives in the present moment. And he's so joyful and cantankerous. Oh my God, he's cantankerous. He is a skitter. Like, he winds me mum up, something shocking, but that's a lifelong, they're marriage long, freaking relationship long part of them. Like, he's always been, he's a rascal. Like, but the gift of that has been like seeing him living in the present, and you can only be in the present when you're with him. And I'm like, what if I lived my life from this place that he's operating from? And I videoed a story talking about it, but of course it was very raw, so I ended up all my eyes out, and I never shared it. And Jason and I talked it out, and he's like, you know, because there's a navigating of, this isn't just my story, this is my family's, this is my dad's story, and being respectful. And there was this whole bit around, and it was an age for me, so I was happy to hold on it. But now it's arriving here instead, but you know, in a more solid place. But there is this piece around sharing from a place of vulnerability. But I also felt like, upon reflection, I do feel like even sharing this now it's raw, like, because it's fucking shit. But it's literally our lives right now. But there's so much gifts in it, like, and it's still, you're grieving every day, and it's just another version of grief. but it's a bizarre one. It's very hard for the brain to reconcile.
I can only imagine. I was reading something, this physical side effects thing about grief, and because whenever Gavin died, I just couldn't function, and then I functioned a wee bit more. But this time around, like I'm very much wired to be like, why is this happening? Why? And especially with like thought and behavior processes, and like I'm learning so much about the physical side effects of grief, and one of them is like, particularly with close family members, your brain has literally built millions of neurons around the connection that you have with this person. So when these things happen, like 4 months later, and you pick up the phone to ring them or text them, or like, that's literally your physical physiology has not caught up with the fact that they're not there, even though on a surface level they're gone. Like your brain is still has all those connections, and it's giving yourself that grace and compassion when that happens too. And the other thing I found is that people are very, that sounded very general there, but my experience has been that people find it very uncomfortable to, what you were saying before, like whenever somebody is expressing grief outwardly, a lot of people can't hold the space for it because it's confronting and it's uncomfortable, and it's like, I found a really good account on Instagram, and it goes into this in great detail, and I can't remember the name of it, but it basically validates the experience of the person grieving while also explaining why people react in the way that they do. And it's, again, like, everyone is working with what they have in the moment, and it's because these conversations are not being had that people cannot be there, or not be there, but like just
hold it.
I meet the person where they're at, and it's either coming on with trying to fix it or suggestions, and that's all very well meaning and coming from a place of love and care, but it's very rare to have those conversations where it can just be what it is, which is emotional and raw and messy and that primal, like, yeah. But it's even what you were saying about the tense, like in that liminal time course I did. I don't know if we can add the tag.
Oh yeah, we
the
can.
girl that
We'll
runs that.
be
It's
dropping
she's,
in the show
she's
notes,
based
yeah.
in England, but it was amazing. But even being sensitive to tense, like a lot of people will say, what was your daddy's name? Well, his name is Kevin because that's his name. Or what age was were they, or was there, whatever.
You mean when you, sorry, you mean past tense, like
Aye.
was, is, yeah,
Aye,
yeah.
aye. And that's not a conscious thing, but it can make a big difference. And, if we can now, if somebody's listening to this and, has somebody in their life that's going through bereavement, like if you can move into those interactions in a more mindful and intentional way, it can have like such a big ripple effect. And, it's not things we think about her, but when she said it, I was like, that makes so much sense.
The was is a big one.
Oh my God.
I worked in a nursing home for 5 years, so I've been there for people's last breaths, and it is a real honour. And but one of the things like blew my mind, and I've seen it a few times even with families, is, and this is just to highlight this for anyone going forward. First of all, compassion for yourself if you were this person. But it's like people, when somebody is unconscious and they're in the last stages, can start talking over the body like the person's not there, and start talking about them in the past tense, even though they're still living and breathing, and they can hear everything. And this, like, personally with my journey, I was like, whoa, this is mental to watch. And even like carers coming in and just having a chat about their weekend while they're, and you're like, dude, that is a living, breathing being lying there. Have some respect. But like a lot around reverence, but yeah, your past and present tense is so important, and it's a hard one to navigate, because even today with my cousin's passing 30 years later, I messaged my aunt, and in it I used both past and present tense, because he is still here, and there is an energy that he is alive in our memories, and he isn't gone, but there is a was as well. And it's like also the celebration of, it's like we focus, like he passed 30 years today, but he had 20 years of life before that, and that's the part that we remember. It's like, let's celebrate who he was as in his life, and then focusing on what happened this day 30 years ago. You know what I mean?
Totally.
And it's that we shift in our inner construct of our understanding of things that makes a difference, I feel like, to process and to arrive at that acceptance a little, just makes it easier for you, you know. But yeah, I mean, but life and death, hey. Fuck me. Birth and death and life in between. The three things that we all navigate.
Yep. And tax.
Taxes. Let's not even talk about taxes. Fucking hell.
But I, like, you know, thank you for holding space for me to share my story, and for giving me this platform to speak into it in a way that hopefully helps at least somebody to not feel as alone on their journey. And obviously, you know, do you know one of the most powerful things you can do with somebody who is moving through a loss? Well, this, again, my personal experience. Tell me about them. Just ask them, like, tell me about what was it like. I see when somebody takes the time to ask me, if they'd never met my dad, but they can see, like, or Gavin, they can see how this loss has shaped my life. When somebody takes the time to ask me about them, it just, my heart could burst, because it's just my opportunity to convey that love. And, you know, that love will always be, and that relationship will always be, but it's to be able to talk and it even after 10 years, you know, after Gavin. It's just, like I was saying to you earlier about, like, you know, our Gavin's dance moves, and just about the quirky character that he was, like, and it then brings up those feelings of love and joy and the gratitude for the time that we did have together. So I just, again, you know, to be moving on to them conversations in a way. And I loved what you said about reverence as well. That is such an important word when navigating these, you know, these transitions of death and holding that space. And I think there's going to be, it feels like there's this momentum gathering to bring it closer to us, and let's make friends with death, and let's, you know,
death is our friend,
and it's part of life.
He accompanies you. I always think of the Reaper. The Reaper. I see this, the Reaper, and like that's such a, been painted as like at Halloween and all this scary thing, but like the reaping is a beautiful thing. Like you were talking about somebody using a scythe, like your friend today, learning to work with outside, they're carrying the scythe. Like that is, if you look at the symbolism of the scythe and the clearing and what that does for the land, and it's a beautiful thing. It's not this thing to be scared of, and it's like, I don't know, it changed. I've changed a lot around my journey with death and coming, and I like seeing him as a friend that holds your hand from the moment of conception. He's been with you before you came. He's like, I'll come with you the whole way. I'm with you the whole way. It's like, isn't that a beautiful way? It's not something, it's somebody who is there in the shadow, always with you, reminding you to enjoy life. It's like, this is the best reminder to enjoy yourself when you're here, because you and I are going to be together very soon, so enjoy now. It's not like this, like what it's been painted as is this villain to be afraid of. It's a beautiful thing, because the more we embrace death, the more we embrace life. And I'm excited to see where your doula work takes you. And like, thank you for saying what you said there, because I always ask people about a resource, and you just naturally shared that resource, and that to me is I was going to ask you, if you were to give somebody a resource who is navigating grief with people at the moment, like a loved one that is grieving, what would it be? And I think that's a lovely one. Just ask them.
Aye.
Ask them about them.
Aye.
Share your favorite memories. Tell me your memories.
Yes.
What were they? What was their smile like? What was their grumpiness like? Which is always a good fun one to add. Like, what were they like on a bad? Like, what was their rascally moves about? Like, what was the things they did that was?
And that's something so simple, but can make somebody feel so seen and heard, and their grief. Like, so I.
And before we go, we will have to do our card pull as well. But I always ask, is there a saying or a practice, ritual, or a word, like a phrase that has been most illuminating to you on your healing journey with grief? I would say, is there something that has carried you through?
Well, I've got a wee nugget from my father. So I lived abroad for many years, and it was during this time I was going through a rough time. I can't remember specifically what it was. Like my dad, I talked a bit about him and what sort of man he was, and he was a practical man, and he loved his meat and veg, and he always had worky bits and dirty hands, but he every so often, like, he'd come out with these nuggets of wisdom, and I'd be like, did you just say that? But something he said to me at one point in my life has stuck with me. And I moved abroad quite young and was living the life of Riley, but after he said this, it basically what it was he said was, it doesn't matter where you go, you always take your head with you. And I was like,
explain that one, Katie.
To me it was very, like, it was like this pearl of wisdom, and it was very deep, and I was like, so basically, like, living abroad is just one context, but like everybody was like consciously or subconsciously like running away from something. And I think that's like whatever it was I was moving through at the time, I think the point he was trying to make was, you're always going to be with yourself.
You're not going to escape.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Like, and it's just really stuck with me. And I was like,
so
right, well,
good.
I can distract myself. Like, and when I slip back into, wanting to distract myself or like procrastinate or like, you can only do it for so long.
Because your head's still with you when you're there.
There you go. And then just another one from my mum as well. You can only go from where you are. Like, and I think that's a good one to remember, where, we know where we want to be and we know where we have been, but you can only go from here and now, and you can't know things until you know them, and you can't undo things that have happened. And so those are two things that very much
they're so Irish. They're just so like, well, you take your head with you, like, do you know what I mean? Like, it's just,
you wear by.
Oh, it's class. I'm just like, I just love that real like grounded wisdom, because it's like a journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step in your mouth. Like, well, you can only be where, like, you can only go from here. Like, you're like.
I think I maybe built that up a bit. I was like, and I came out with this nugget of wisdom.
But
like,
no,
you're expecting something poetic.
No, but that's what I love. It's just so like, there it is. Like, I think Jason has spoke to this in an episode before. Did you? Is he here? No, he's away. Like his. Did we talk about this? Shadows. Yeah, his granny being like. I just love these colloquial kind of like, they're so fucking spot on. Like, his granny says, don't bring an asshole with you, because there'll always be one there when you get there. And I'm just like, you know what I mean? I'm like, it's so true. Like, there's always a fucker, like,
don't bring an asshole with you, because there'll always be one there.
Yeah, it's like, basically, like, you don't need to bring a twat or somebody that's really annoying with you, like. Because when you get to somewhere in the group, there's always going to be some tosser that's going to fry your nut. Like, and I was just like, that was her way of saying, there's always. I maybe said that wrong, have I?
She wasn't quite as.
She used a lovely "see you next Tuesday,"
Yeah.
but wasn't that essentially it? It
What
was she in her 90s coming out with these lines like a cracker, but this real grounded wisdom of being like. because Jason was fretting about somebody annoying him. She's like, there's always one there when you get there. Like, there's always one. She's like, you're not listening to all the positive. You're listening to this. There's always one. Like, you know, there always is one. This is so true. Like, that's so true. You do go to the wake or the funeral, and then you have that one that you have the N-word eye roll. You'd be like, oh, geez. There's always that one, isn't there? Like, that cracked me up. But that's it. So, everywhere you go, your head's still with you. Was that it?
Doesn't matter where you go, you'll always take your head with you.
Love it. Same. And what was your mummy's one again?
You can only go from where you are.
So true. Because this is the only place you can be.
This is the word of Mommy and Daddy Daly. Amen.
Amen. Was it ramen halloumi? I love that. That's class. Shout out to Mr. and Mrs. Daly. Thank you to your mommy and daddy for creating the amazing being that you are. Because it's our friendship and the blossoming of it has been a real gift for me. So, and sharing this about grief, because you know how much it's hitting for me as well at the minute, and just haven't been able to feel safe to have that conversation, but like, you know, and have all the waves, like be sitting crying in the kitchen being like, fuck yeah, I you know, and every grief, every person, individual grief is so different and sacred and treated with reverence, because your relationship with your daddy is different to your brother's relationship. Even in the same household, everybody's experience of every single grief, we have generic themes, but it's all, everyone is so sacred and special as every single soul that you are grieving. And it's like, and just know that it's okay to show up and honor it in the way that feels right for you. And thank you for sharing your story, and I feel really like blessed to have honored your daddy and Gavin here today, like in this way. And I know they're here with us and definitely have given us many a laugh today.
We didn't even need our
we did so good.
we were in the kitchen out of tissues.
We were out of tissues, folks. For those of you watching, we have singlet toilet roll pieces.
Jason very carefully
to make us look classy.
I think we did all crying earlier.
We did. We were crying out. We're never going to talk about it. But thank you for speaking to
thank you, Ruth.
And then we picked. Well, I didn't. Katie picked this beautiful deck, the Sacred Earth Oracle. It's beautiful, and the card, we did our usual. I shuffled and Katie pulled, and it was with the intention of today's session. Session.
That was a bit like a therapy session.
What
was
the word I'm looking for? Episode. And we have this beautiful card, Rediscovery. So I'm going to read it now. This is quite a bit of a reading, if I recall. Oh no, we're not too bad. Okay.
I just want to say I love the fact that it's a wee. I think it's a girl, but it's like a definite childlike energy,
yes,
and we've been
childlike.
in our child energy all day. Love it.
I love it. So, rediscovery. And for those of you listening and watching, when this arrives in your ears, as I always say, is it meant for you today? So, earthly meaning. Withdrawal to the security of loved ones. Stumbling on or triggering a memory. Stories told in safety. Creative space. A message from the past for the future. Your body remembers. Listen to its story. Deep pain is transformed into wisdom and understanding.
Stop it.
An inheritance, legacy, or heirloom.
Goosebumps.
Literally. Having access to the tools and knowledge you need. Be gentle with who you were and strong about who you will become.
Seriously.
Mic drop. Oh, I don't know if I can get through this. Okay. Spiritual meaning. If you're feeling lost, confused, or asking what life is all about, then it may be the perfect time to consult your original self, the one you keep hidden while you grow up and supposedly wiser around it. The sweet, loving, innocent you is not lost. There's the little child. Deep down, you're still that person. The original you exists outside of time, safe and awaiting rediscovery. And it says, insight Caves are the keepers of humanity's earliest history. Caves have been coming up loads for me this week. Within the safety of the earth and stone. We were at Bentley Stone Circle today, folks. Anyway. Within the safety of the earth and stone, we slept, we ate, and we told our stories. The caves still hold those stories. The rock that graced us with a space where we were protected from the troubles of predators and cold became a creative space. Those walls were canvases for the earliest paintings and kept them hidden, safe and preserved, some for over 40,000 years. Tools, bones, charcoal and artworks await the return of their peoples, ready for their ascendance. Knowledge of animals now extinct, red handprints, a message from another time. Ancient wisdom awaits rediscovery. Your stories are within you. Some may be forgotten, but they are never lost. You may search for them, you may stumble across them, you might take shelter and rediscover them in darkness. Red outlines, markings on bone, crude tools of survival the ancestors have provided for you. Journey to the sanctuary within.
It's like a synopsis for our whole conversation, literally.
Every time. Mic drop.
Boom.
Katie, I love you.
Love you too.
Thank you from my heart and womb to yours for being you.
Oh,
Love you.
love. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Bye.
Bye.